Alright guys, welcome to day 2. This is our 4th hour in class, so technically it's our 4th day in a normal semester. But things aren't normal right now, are they? So a couple things you're going to need. You are going to need a digital camera. In this case, I'm going to use my cell phone for my digital camera. It's a iPhone 7 Plus. It's an old phone. It's going to work great. If you have anything newer than that, awesome. If you have a DSLR or a digital single lens reflex camera, we're going to learn how to use those a little bit later. Feel free to use those now so you're comfortable with it. Once I can get some in your hands, then we're going to go ahead and be using digital cameras. But for now, a phone's going to work just fine. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to go over our learning goal. I want you guys to learn the basics of photo composition. Composition are the little tiny pieces that you're going to use to make a strong photograph. There's lots of ways to use them. I just want to give you a basic understanding of those. By the end of class today, you should be able to identify the elements in your photos you've already taken, the elements of composition, and begin to use them with proficiency. The better you are at putting the pieces of composition together, the better your photos are going to come out. So what I want to do, we're going to go over the composition rules, and then we're going to go over today's tasks. You're going to have independent work. We're going to check in and wrap this thing up. Okay? So here we go. Just make sure I'm recording. Perfect. So the rule of thirds. Divide your image into 9 equal segments. So you divide here, divide here, divide here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, like a tic-tac-toe board. Now, you can set it up on your phone to automatically have the rule of thirds grid on there. I do that. Okay? You're going to have 2 vertical lines and 2 horizontal lines. The rule of thirds says that you should position the most important elements of your scene along these lines, or at the points where they intersect. Those points, let me do this in red here, these are called the power points. Those are the strongest area of your composition. Okay? If you take your most important feature, in this case I'm going to use my black pen here. Right here's the most important thing, is the lighthouse. Notice it is on this line right here. Okay? The next most important thing in this picture is going to be my horizon line. My horizon line involves a mountain, and notice that is on this line right here. So what you want to do whenever you guys take a picture, put your most important features on these power lines right here. Okay? Either the 2 vertical ones or the 2 horizontal ones. Here's the deal. Never, 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 I'm going to do this in green. Don't put your most important feature in the center. That's really cliche and really easy to do, so a lot of photos don't create the visual tension you need to get the attention of your viewer. So avoid the middle with the most important features. Work the top third, bottom third, right third, left third, and those power points, or the power lines. Okay? That's the rule of thirds. Next is balancing elements. So notice here we have this element. Okay? Notice we have this element. These elements are clusters of trees. We have this element. We have this element. Those are our focal points. Those are the most important things in this picture. Everything else, right? All this stuff here, all the ground, that's just our environment. So what we're really concerned is balancing this area, this area, this area, and this area. Those are our elements, or the pieces of our picture. Okay? Placing your main subject off center, so notice they're using the rule of thirds, as the rule of thirds would suggest, creates a more interesting photo, but it can leave a void in the scene, making it feel empty, right? This is potentially empty here. You should balance the weight of your picture, the visual weight, by including other subject matter of less importance. So this is the most important cluster of trees. And then what we've done, we've got cluster 1, 2, and 3. Notice how small 3 is. Those little tiny elements help prevent it from being empty, while the main element right here is in the center. Okay, so it's very important. Balance out the pieces of your picture. It could be a person up close and a building in the background. It could be all sorts of buildings. You can put the biggest building on the rule of thirds points, and you have the rest of the buildings in the background. So think about how you're balancing out the elements of your photos. Leading lines. I love this one. Leading lines. These are really useful. When you look at a photo, your eyes are naturally drawn along lines. By thinking about how you place lines in your composition, you can affect the way we, your viewers, look at your artwork. In fact, you can pull our eyes through a piece by really well-placed lines. For example, this road automatically moves my eyes through this space here. Okay, these lines here automatically move my eyes through this space here. So it's important to put together those leading lines. Sorry about that. Can't remember where we were. I had to go fix something over there on the other side of the classroom. So, leading lines. Now the simple lines are obviously the lines present here and the lines in our road here. Those are the simple lines that we see. And our eyes are naturally going to follow those lines. Our eyes need a path. But there are some other lines I want you to notice. Think about this big line, this big line, this big line here, and the edge of this. Those lines also help balance out our image. So we have lines moving up this way on our sandstone, lines moving this way. And what's happening is my viewer is moving their eyes throughout the piece, finding those lines. So if you want to draw attention to your work, make sure you have really strong lines present somehow. It could be someone standing, it could be the buttons on a shirt, it could be the horizon, it could just be bricks. There's all sorts of ways to utilize lines in your environment to help create a stronger piece. Symmetry and patterns. Okay, this is a little bit trickier. I try not to use it often. Maybe if I'm doing a family photo shoot or I'm trying to capture an environment that's really convoluted, lots of stuff happening, for example, like all these markers, things like that. I'm going to look for areas that are patterned or areas where there's symmetry. So for example here, we have symmetry in the two goats, and then we have symmetry in these three shapes here. So we have the sky, which is kind of a trapezoid, or sorry, rhombus. We have this area here and this area here of the environment that create a pattern. And then we have symmetry in the two goats. This one, obviously, we've got circles, divide that in half. Notice this isn't directly in the middle. We're looking at the landscape now. Notice if I do my rules of thirds, okay, we have got ground in the bottom third, objects in the middle third, sky in the top third. Notice this triangle right here is not directly in the middle of our picture, and these aren't directly in the middle. That little bit of tension, making it asymmetrical, off balance a little bit, creates that tension that we want to see and look at. So again, what I want you to do, I want you to look at your environments that you're in and think about, are there patterns or other symmetry that you can capture in your picture to make it stronger, okay? Viewpoint. So for example, let's say I'm going to photograph this marker. Actually, let's do my coffee cup. Okay, I might photograph from here, and I'm right up in that space of the coffee cup. It's about the texture, the color, things like that. If I step back, now it's about the environment and that cup existing in the environment. Notice here, so viewpoint, before photographing your subject, okay, take time to think about where you should shoot it from. Our viewpoint has a massive impact on the composition of our photos, and as a result, it can greatly affect the message that the shoot conveys. Rather than just shooting from eye level, okay, not where I'm sitting, but eye level, where you're standing, consider photographing from high above, down at the ground level, from the side, from the back, move around objects from long away, from very close up, and so on, so you can kind of create a different environment. Notice this one here. This is about the waterfall, this picture here, and how it's moving through those rocks. But the one next to it, this is about being in that valley, trapped down in that canyon and seeing that water pour into the space that you're at. It makes it much bigger, puts a more perspective into the waterfall. This one here, about the pineapple, this one here really shows me that I'm up close, I'm seeing the texture of this pineapple, the reality of the pineapple. It's very interesting, I can tell it's a pineapple. It looks a little unusual, but then when I step back, I see that it's actually a building. So this one here, right, the building where I'm far away shows context. However, I like this one more. Put a little purple thing here. I like this one more. Oh, my iPad just died. And I'm back. Speaking of back, let's talk about backgrounds, okay? So, how many times have you taken what you thought would be a great shot? Now my Apple Pencil's not working. Let's get that charged up here. That would be a great shot, only to find out that the final image lacks the impact because the subject blends into a busy background. The human eye is excellent at distinguishing between the different elements in a scene, whereas a camera has a tendency to flatten the image in the background if it's a bad background. So think about this lady playing the violin here. If for some reason we were in front of a brick wall and she blends into that brick wall, it creates a lot of busyness and a lot of mess. It's really hard to identify the elements of her and her violin, but you put her in a black background, then she starts to emerge from that space, and you can really start to see the textures of the violin and her hair and the highlights on her skin, things like that. So a good background is very important. It can really ruin a picture with a bad background. Now, later in the year, we're going to learn how to manipulate background in the camera if you can't find a good background. We're going to get to that later. But now, you can actually move objects around. So when you shoot this today, think about, what if I photograph, you can have your car, you can have a friend, you can do a selfie, whatever you want. What does it look like with a bad background versus a good background? You're going to take the same subject, a person or an object, and photograph it with 3 different backgrounds and just see how that affects the quality of your photo. Next, depth. Can you create the layers of space inside your photo? Is there something up close that I can work with? We call that the foreground. In this case, this would be the foreground right here. Some markers in the foreground. I am in the middle ground, and some movie posters, some walls, and some camera equipment is in the background. Can you create that in your photos? And can you make the foreground, the middle ground, and the background dynamic and exciting in how they interact with each other? A good photo has something in each of those spaces that is engaging with the viewer. And even better is engaging to the viewer and engaging to the subject of your photo. In this case, the sheep are grazing out here in this field, and showing the background, which is more sheep, or sorry, showing the background, which is mountains and clouds, sets the stage that these are alpine sheep, probably somewhere in Eastern Europe, maybe in Scotland. You can see kind of that stone up close in the foreground there. That's kind of helping show, go back here, show that there's something in the foreground, middle ground, background. And the sheep are in the foreground and the middle ground, okay? Framing, this one's important. Framing is such a useful tool when photographing. So here, the mountains, okay? If you look at the picture of the maroon bells, it's the one with the green trees in there. The 2 mountain sides, okay? Oh man, I need my pencil to work, guys. It makes it a lot easier, so we're just gonna kind of roll through here. The 2 sides of the mountains, okay, those create a frame for the mountain in the middle. So if you're not looking at me in the lecture, look at me and not the slide at the moment, okay? So you got the 2 mountains here, and they frame the mountain in the middle. For example, here, I don't have anything attractive here. I have a computer monitor, not very good. I could bring this monitor over, and it kind of frames me in over here, but it's kind of suffocating. What would be better is if there was like a tree or some flowers up front. There's none in my office, or my little markers here. And you can use something attractive to frame the character in the middle or the subject in the middle. So think about, what can you find in your picture to put in the foreground that'll help frame up that space for your figure or your model or your subject? Okay? Cropping. Now, cropping is where I might take these glasses, okay, and I might photograph them right here on my table. That's an okay photograph, but I've got a lot of stuff in the background to contend with, an object to contend with. So for cropping, I might get my camera right up in there, or after I take my picture, I might shrink it down in editing so I just focus in on the glasses. So cropping is taking your big picture, shrinking it down, and finding the most important element in your picture and not all the extra stuff. Now, experimentation. Think about break the rules. Break the rules of what you are photographing. Maybe you put something in the middle of the rule of thirds. Maybe you let it be blurry. Maybe you have no lines at all. Maybe it's just blurry colors. Sometimes we have to experiment with our pictures, and we can find even more interesting ways to use the rules of composition that aren't predictable, creating visual tension and making it more exciting. Okay? Lastly, this is something to ponder. By the way, this picture of the buffalo and the picture of the birds, that's a friend of mine. He's a fantastic photographer. Really neat wildlife photography. Think where you want your viewer, me, or whoever's looking at your pictures, to look at. It's important that you plan for emphasis in your photo and limit it to the central point. In one case, it's the buffalo. In the other case, it's the center of the flower. Okay? Most likely, it is what you are looking at in the first place is probably your focal point. So think about every picture you take, what do you want me, the viewer, to see? What's the most important thing you want me to see? And how can you use all the rules of composition to draw my eyes to it, making your picture stronger and more attractive? All right, guys, sorry, this was a strange lecture. I'm just going to smash it all together, edit out some of the weird bits, and we're going to go from there. So if it's a little disjointed, I'm sorry. I want to jump back over here to what your class is going to look like today. Here we go. I believe, let me just look at my computer over here. You have this handout, okay? We're going to break this down into 3 sections. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to have 4 15-minute photographing sessions where you'll photograph and come check in with me on Google Classroom, post your pictures onto your Jamboard. Again, if you have Jamboard on your phone, guys, it's going to make this so much easier for you. So here's what I want you to do. Okay? For the first 15 minutes of independent time, or asynchronous learning, you're going to take photos using the rules of thirds. You're going to take 1 to 3 photos, different photos. But, for example, my first photo is going to be my sunglasses. I'm going to photograph it, right, using the right third, and I'm going to photograph it using the left third, and then I'm going to photograph it vertically, right? So I'm going to take different compositions of that one pair of glasses. Now, 3 to 4 different photos. For each one, you're going to do a photograph in the middle. That's 1 photo. To the left third, that's 2 photos. To the right third, that's 3 photos. And then you're going to change from vertical to horizontal or horizontal to vertical. That's 4. So if you take 3 different photos, 4 versions of each, that'd be 12. Okay, if you take 4 photos, 4 versions of each, that'd be 16. Hopefully that doesn't confuse you. Hit me up in the Google Classroom and I'll answer those questions for you. Then you're going to post those pictures on your Jamboard. I'll check in on you, see how you're doing. Your next 15 minutes of independent work, you're going to take 6 photos that demonstrate leading lines. So just look around your space, find leading lines, take 6 leading line photos. And then you're going to take 6 photos that demonstrate either symmetry or pattern. It's going to be 12 photos during that 15-minute section. And then put some of your photos onto the Jamboard so I can see where you're working. Check in with me on Google Classroom. Your next section of photos, you're going to take 3 photos and then completely change your viewpoint. So close to far, right? I'm going to photograph the glasses close and I'm going to photograph the glasses from far away. Maybe I photograph my front door close and then I photograph my front door from far away, things like that. Don't put your address in there, okay? Just be aware of those kinds of things. So you're going to take 3 photos where I'm going to fix these spelling errors here. And you're going to change the viewpoint, close and then far. Take a picture of someone or something with 3 different backgrounds. So maybe I'll photograph a selfie with a brick background, photograph a selfie in my garage, it's messy, and then photograph a selfie in front of the wall that I've got painted solid so it's a nice smooth background. So same character, same object, 3 different backgrounds. You can also move like a toy around or something like that. Okay, and then your last chunk of independent work, you're going to take 6 pictures where you use something in the foreground, the front of your image, to frame something in the background. Okay? And then you're going to take 6 photos that have a clear focal point. That's going to be 12 photos. When it's all said and done, guys, you are going to have 12, that's 24, 9, that's 33, plus another 12, 43, 45 photos roughly. More than that's great, but I'm looking for 45 photos. Once it's all said and done, you're going to take your best example of each, go to your Google Slides, okay? You're going to make 3 new slides. So you're going to have your title slide, you're going to make 3 new slides, each one's going to be titled Day 2, and you're going to put 4 photos on each that kind of show me what you've done today. Okay, that is going to be your grade. That's how I'm going to grade your assignments, is you're going to put 4 photos on each of the 3 slides. Okay, so your Google Slide presentation should have title slide, and then Day 2, Slide 1, 4 photos. Day 2, Slide 2, 4 photos. Day 2, Slide 3, 4 photos. Okay, guys, if you have questions, if I was confusing, hit me up in the Google Classroom, and we'll get this squared away. All right, guys, see you tomorrow.